Friends, Cowboy Jobu here with the Jobu Report, and we're checking in on First Take. You know, I'm going to start a petition to change the name from First Take to First Take Dallas Cowboys, because it seems like the Dallas Cowboys are always the subject on here. I mean, they never show any love to teams like Jacksonville or Tampa Bay. It's always Dallas Cowboys. Sometimes they do twofers of the Dallas Cowboys. Well, everybody seems to be weighing in on Dak Prescott, even Brett Favre. Can you believe it? He's saying Tony Romo should just wait to come back. That guy is saying a quarterback should sit? Okay. As always, thank you for subscribing to the Jobu Report. And if you haven't, click over here on the picture of me and Sean Lee. Now let's go to the tape.
So let's get into our first one. We begin with America's team and one of America's favorites. Brett Favre was asked on his weekly Sirius XM NFL radio show, if you were Tony Romo, how would you handle getting your job back?
I tried to put myself, say, in Tony's shoes. I'm sure Tony wants to play. I mean, he doesn't want to get injured. He wants to be productive. But you have to look at the dynamics right now, and they really are hitting on all cylinders. So this is hypothetically thinking. If you're Tony, you say, you know what? As much as I want to play, I don't want to press the issue. I want to play, but I'm going to let it play out right now. And it's probably better if Dak starts struggling, and then they bring me in, rather than they put me in, and then all of a sudden we're not hitting on all cylinders, and everyone's like, they should have got rid of Tony. But I mean, if I'm making sense. So I'm not saying that you tell Garrett or Jerry Jones, look, I don't want to play. I think you want to play, but look, I don't want to mess up the dynamics of the team. If we get to a point where we're struggling, then it's time for me to come in. Now, that's a hard thing to do. I just think you're better if you wait till you're really needed. And I mean, with no disrespect whatsoever to Tony.
Stephen A., how do you feel about it?
I think Brett Favre is a flaming hypocrite for saying what he said. That's right, I said it. I mean, can you believe the stuff coming out of his mouth, of all people? This is the same guy that in 2008, after hinting towards retirement, couldn't make up his mind several times, ultimately retired in March of 2008, then decides to come back in August and disrupt everything that the Green Bay Packers were trying to do before they handled it. Ted Thompson, Mike McCarthy handled it adroitly and ultimately shipped him to the New York Jets, which, by the way, led them to a 9-7 record, but threw 22 interceptions that season, leading the league. This is the same Brett Favre that did not really want to sit up there and work with Aaron Rodgers. This is the same Brett Favre that had a guy in Aaron Rodgers sitting behind him for 3 years, did virtually nothing to help him, while literally fluctuating between making up his mind, not making up his mind as to whether or not he would retire. And you have the audacity, the unmitigated gall to sit up here and call out, the Dallas Cowboys. Well, if you're Tony Romo, you might want to wait. If you're Tony Romo, you know what? You're going to sit there. It's better for you to sit on the sidelines and wait and hope that this dude messes up, so then you could come in and save the day, as opposed to saying it's my job. I was just injured, but I'm back and I'm ready to go right now, and I want to disrupt chemistry. Who, in terms of quarterbacks, star quarterbacks, guys who were counted upon to produce, who disrupted chemistry more than Brett Favre? I want to know. I'm quite sure he's a nice guy. The Wrangler Jeans commercials certainly confirm that, because he makes sure to come across as a nice guy, and they make sure to let him come across as a nice guy. ESPN, obviously, without Walt Disney, says we love Brett Favre. I mean, did you see? I can't tell you how many times, Max. I can't tell you how many times. And it's very little that I say. I mean, the Chris Bermans of the world, the Tom Jacksons of the world, I call them the institution, and all of these other guys. There is very little that I ever say to disagree with the institutions and everybody else. But I swear to you, I can't tell you how many times I wanted to throw up watching people at this network, sit there and fawn over Brett Favre. Oh, look at him fall down and throw the ball underhanded. Oh, look at him jump into the arms of his offensive lineman.
Drawing up plays in the dirt.
He's drawing up plays in the dirt. He's like a little kid. He did the kid in him, it never left. He loves the game so much. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, please. The guy was disruptive. The guy could not make up his mind. The guy wasn't the ultimate teammate in terms of helping his teammate get better. The guy was about himself in the latter part of his career, and the fact of the matter is, for him to sit up there and to say this about Tony Romo, oh my Lord, what nerve, you of all people. I can't believe it. I just can't believe it. I'm sorry, I ain't trying to hear that from Brett Favre. No.
Well, you're going to hear it. You see, hypocrisy is the tribute that vice pays virtue. Think about that one. You have to rewind it and think about it.
I do. I have to rewind it.
Hypocrisy is the tribute that vice pays virtue.
Okay.
In other words, you know
Break it
at
down.
some level this is the right thing to do.
Yep.
So vice, the thing that you're doing wrong, has to pay tribute to the thing that knows it's supposed to be doing right. Was Brett Favre selfish in many respects in precisely the way that you described? Absolutely. So
Okay.
it seems as though he's being hypocritical here. However, Stephen A. Smith, in fact, what's happening is you're being hypocritical. And in your case, it's not even about vice paying virtue a tribute. It's simply, I have to imagine the blunt force trauma of having to go 15 rounds with Mohammed Kellerman every day on this show.
Mohammed
That's what it's got to be.
Kellerman, you
Now,
didn't go there.
let's get this straight.
Go ahead.
Let's get this
Mohammed
straight.
Kellerman. You must be crazy. Go ahead.
Go, if you're Cosell, I'm
Go ahead.
someone.
Well, you know.
Let's get this straight. You have been sitting here telling me for weeks and weeks and months now that Tony Romo is overrated, essentially. That Tony Romo is being spoken about like he's this legendary player, but in fact, he's not as good as people think. Now, you and I disagree. I think he's an excellent quarterback. I guess you think he's something less than that. Or certainly you said he's overrated at times. What makes you think that Brett Favre, from where he's sitting, doesn't have the right to criticize Tony Romo? Brett Favre talking about Romo is not Brett Favre talking about Peyton or Brady or someone like that, according to you. So Brett Favre, who had never had an injury history, he was the all-time and remains the all-time Iron Man in the NFL. And even if I also think Favre was overrated in certain respects, he's certainly one of the 10 greatest quarterbacks who ever lived. I don't think anyone disputes that.
So what's your problem?
Well, you're acting as though Favre can't say this about Romo because Favre behaved a certain way.
Yes.
Romo ain't Brett Favre.
No, I agree with that.
Well, it's not the same thing then.
No, what I'm saying to you is that if you're still playing, don't get me wrong. I understand in theory, if you put it that way, I get where you're coming from. My point to you is that Brett Favre is not preaching what he practiced. Brett Favre was an entirely different person. Brett Favre wasn't the kind of guy that would do what he's asking Tony Romo to do. And I'm not saying, he's not saying that because it's Tony Romo. He's saying it because he's saying, from a football perspective, this is how you're supposed to handle such situations. That's what he's saying. And I'm saying, the nerve of him to say such a thing. I got a problem with him saying that because that wasn't the Brett Favre that I knew in the latter part of his career.
Me too, because Aaron Rodgers better than Brett Favre ever was. And that's right, I said that. But Favre can be forgiven for thinking that guy, what are the odds that guy winds up as good as me? That's not the same thing as Romo for Dak. Dak might wind up better than Romo ever was, and right now is playing at a Romo kind of level.
Well, listen, what I'm saying to you is that Brett Favre is sitting back saying, you know what, if I'm Tony Romo, I just wait. I don't disrupt the situation. When Brett Favre had no problem
If he's
disrupting
Tony
anything.
Romo, because Romo is
it.
operating on a certain
But he's
level.
not saying it because it's Romo. He's saying it because in the NFL with the Dallas Cowboys in this particular situation, this is how the situation is. This is how it looks. And this is how you're supposed to conduct yourself. That is what he is saying.
Yes,
and I'm saying the nerve of him.
And he's being hypocritical, and so are you. Because you're treating Romo as though he's elevated above how you usually put him.
No, I'm focusing on Brett Favre. I ain't even thinking about Romo.
Okay.
I'm just thinking about the words that came out of Brett Favre's
So
mouth.
if Favre was talking about a lesser quarterback than Romo, that would still be wrong?
I'm saying yes, because I'm thinking about Brett Favre and how it's not consistent with how he
If
himself
Brock
behaved.
Osweiler, if he was talking about Brock Osweiler, would that be okay or no?
Did I not speak English? I said it don't matter who it is. Of
course it matters who it is.
Brett Favre coming out of his mouth and saying what he said, knowing how he conducted himself. What? Yes, dear.
Couldn't you say that he's arguing that he's actually defending Romo here? And he's saying, just
think-
let it play out. Dak's going to mess up. He's going to start throwing interceptions. Then you come in and be the hero. That's how you play
saying
it.
it's a tough
And he
situation.
actually has his back.
No, well, you can say that. I don't look at it that way. For me, I don't look at it that way. I look at him trying to come across, as the diva that he is, talking about this is the way things are supposed to be, like he's somebody that practices it. Brett Favre was a relatively polarizing figure in the latter part. He had a great year in Minnesota when they went to the NFC Championship game with the whole Bounty Gates fiasco. He had a great year that year, but the bottom line is 2 of the last 3 years with the Jets, and then obviously that last year in Minnesota, clearly it wasn't his greatest years. All I'm saying is Brett Favre was a relative distraction because Brett Favre couldn't make up his mind half the time over the last 5 years, whether he was going to play or whether he was going to
I have an
retire.
answer for
And at the
Molly.
quarterback position, how could you hold a franchise hostage like that?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely, Brett Favre did that. But I have an answer for you in terms of what Favre is saying. I think Favre is actually telling on himself. Favre is saying that this is how you scheme. If you want that job back,
Yeah.
this is what I would do. I would play it cool.
That's how I was kind of
And then when the other guy starts to mess up, hey, I'm here. In fact, he's telling on himself in terms of his selfish tendencies. You can analyze it that way.
Work the system.
I don't mind that element. I don't mind that perspective. That falls
know how
in
to
line.
play the game.
That falls in. No, I'm talking about in terms of his selfishness. That falls in line with what I think about Brett Favre, a guy that's passed for over 71,838 yards in his career. But you know what? I'm looking at his interceptions. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, his 336 interceptions on his resume. I know he's one of the all-time great quarterbacks. He was a gunslinger. He was also risque. He led the league in interceptions a couple of times. I just look at Brett Favre and I'm like, the quarterback position, everything that we say that you're supposed to be about as a professional. We didn't hold Brett Favre accountable to that. We had a media fawning over everything he did to the point. I mean, I think if Brett Favre pulled out a box of cereal, folks would have went and got the damn milk for him. That's how bad it was. At this network too. At here. Not just the NFL, not just the
You
other
were leading
networks.
the charge.
Here.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm talking about people walking around waving their Brett Favre pom-poms.
Breaking news,
It was
Favre's
embarrassing.
By
Let me please.
the way, considering also this, you have to now reconsider what Favre said. Majikowski, the guy he took the job from, lost it to an injury. He twisted his ankle. In fact, I just saw Favre's first game because Jim Lampley actually called that game with Ahmad Rashad, and they played it. They re-aired it a couple of years ago. It's like, oh, Lampley's calling the game, and Favre is doing these incredible things. But Favre, once he took the job, Majikowski got Wally pipped. He never got back the job because Favre was the all-time Iron Man.
Yeah.
Well, what if Dak doesn't miss games? What if Dak doesn't play bad? That's the end of Tony Romo.
Gotcha.
We will leave it there. Lil Wayne's going to join us later. He's a Packers fan. Curious to hear what he has to say about that subject and this next one.